And welcome to Bite Size Learning. I'm Dr. Mike Sevilla. So we have a great topic tonight, a very important topic, especially for OAFP members, having to do with board certification for the American Board of Family Medicine. We're talking about a member service that the OAFP is going to be or is offering right now. So before we bring in our guest, I do want to just also share with you that OAFP also has other ways that you can participate and get your requirements for ABFM, basically through the KSAs or knowledge self-assessment. And we have a couple of virtual sessions that are coming up in the next couple of months. And also there's going to be an in-person one coming up at our in-person meeting in Canton coming up in Akron. And of course, always made available at the Family Medicine Workshop each January. So for more information about what OAFP can offer for your board certification, you can go to ohioafp.org. So let me bring in our guest here. Dr. Ryan Kauffman is going to be talking about EasyPI, Self-Guided Performance Improvement. That is a service for OAFP members. So good evening, Ryan, and take it away.
Oh, thanks. We just want to share with everybody a little bit about what we're doing with EasyPI. This is a new program that we just rolled out this last week. Really, this comes from our goal is always to look at how we can make life easier for our members. And as everybody knows, we now have to do as part of our maintenance certification, do performance improvement or quality improvement within our practice. Now, this is something that all of us as family docs are doing every day. We're trying to take the very best care of all of our patients. But what this is really looking for is a formal project, and that's always a little scary when you see all those requirements and you have to check all those boxes. Now, the ABFM has been working to make this easier for physicians, but it still can be fairly complicated to make sure you get it right. So what EasyPI really is designed to do is to help guide you through the process and help you to really make it easy. Because, like I said, we know you're doing this already. We just want to make sure you get credit for what you're doing. So what the goal of EasyPI is to take a topic and then give you all the information around that topic that you need to have the background to choose quality measures, to figure out how to improve on the quality of care that you're able to give your patients, and then to measure that, and then most importantly, to apply and get credit for it for ABFM credit. You also, EasyPI uses the independent pathway to get performance improvement credit. And so you get your points for ABFM. That meets that requirement. It gives you 20 points for the ABFM. It also gives you 20 hours of CME. So what this really does is it rewards you for the work you're already doing. It makes it easy. With EasyPI, we've also collected some other things in it to potentially give you some CME as well. Some of the materials that we include are CME bearing materials, as well as some of them actually will give you, like with the ABFM Journal Club articles on the topic, will actually give you additional points towards your ABFM certification as well as CME. And so the way it's structured is you have all these resources available to you. You can do all of them. You can do just a couple of them. So the goal is really to make it tailored to what you need, not waste your time, but give you exactly what you need, when you need it, how you need it. At rollout, we have adult immunizations and COPD as the two that are available. Asthma will be coming online within the next month. And then over the next couple of years, we plan to have a lot more of these in a variety of areas. And really the goal of all of these is to kind of teach you how to do the process. As you can see, here's the website. And if we click on one of those there, you'll be able to see a little more of how it's actually laid out. What each of them does is it gives a little bit of a background first. So it gives you kind of the major articles that are that have to do with that. So often it's American Family Physician articles or other good overview articles. And then we go through and give some guidelines. And there you can see the overview. Also on some of these, we give resources like things on practice management, billing and coding, those kinds of things, as well as any other background stuff that's helpful. Then we give the guidelines because as you choose a quality project, you really want to do something that kind of meets with guidelines. And so this gives you just a quick link to catch the current guidelines on the topic. Then we give some point of care tools or clinical decision support tools. So basically it gives you some information about that you can use in your visits, often a phone app or a website that you can use. We give resources for patients. So if you want to make part of your intervention educating patients, it'll give you some handouts that you can easily adapt or just print out. And then once you have all that, then we give you the performance improvement stuff. So basically, give you information about how to choose measures, including as much as we can, giving measures that your EMR may already be collecting for you, so you don't have to go through new chart reviews and those things, but maybe it'll just pull it right out of your records. And then give you information about how to put together an intervention, give some suggested interventions, and then give an example of how to do a PDSA cycle. And so that plan, do, study, act. Now, the nice thing about all of this is these are just suggestions, but it gives you an idea of how to do it. You can adjust it and do something different. One of the things we talk about in looking at measures is looking at health equity. That's certainly an important topic to be thinking about right now. And all these give some suggestions on how you can tailor your project to look a little bit more at that. And then we also have on a lot of these steps, have videos, have handouts, have those kinds of things. And again, you don't have to use them. But if you're kind of stuck on how to do that next step, it gives it to you. And then in the end, we walk you through the actual, here's the form, here's how you submit it, here's how you answer these questions. And so the goal really is to step you through this process, is to make it easy for you, make it not stressful, and something that hopefully you can complete in just a few hours of time that can actually improve the care your patients get. Because certainly we all do our very, very best to give our patients the best care possible. However, there are things in the system that we can make better. And so the goal with all of these quality improvement projects that we do at the Academy is not how do you as a physician do more, because we know, I know my schedule, I know your schedule is so full that there isn't time to do more, but how do you involve your team? How do you leverage your front office staff, your nursing, to help improve care? And then how do you get credit for what you're doing? So it's really good for that. A couple other things that are great to know about this product is we've decided to peer review all of these. So what you have is after it's been written, we've had multiple family physicians who look over it, make sure that it is relevant, make sure that it is understandable and usable before you get it. Now, when you do choose to do one of these, we'd ask that you complete a survey. We're doing a survey right now because we actually would like to collect some data and see what kind of an impact we're able to have on physicians. Because with these, we're going to be reviewing them again on a regular basis. So at least every year, reviewing them, making sure that we have the most up-to-date articles, making sure that we have the resources that you need and that they're helpful. And we want to make sure that they are having the most impact for physicians that we can.
So Ryan, this is not a new thing. This is the same performance improvement process that the American Board has gone on along. This is not an additional thing. This is not an additional requirement. This is something that the OAFP is offering members, which is basically a roadmap. And I guess the reason why it's EasyPI is that you just follow the steps. And then, because always the questions that I've heard, and you probably heard as well, is like, how do we do the write-up, and how do we do this, and how do we do that? And so it looks like this process kind of helps you do that. And I know you've recorded videos about that, how to fill in the paperwork and all that stuff. Am I on the right path here?
Absolutely. So this PI requirement has been there for a good long time. Now the board has done some things to make it easier. So they've created this self-directed pathway so that you can apply for PI for anything you've done in the past. Many of us had done metric projects through the American Academy, or you had done the OAFP modules that we created. So there it was a certified module that gave you options, and then you had to choose from those options and do your project. A couple years ago, they simplified this incredibly by making this self-directed pathway where you can choose what topic you want and choose your measures and choose a lot of these things and applying your credit for it. And what this really is just like you said, it's that roadmap, it is that guide, it's holding your hand there as you're doing it. And the nice part of it is for those who've done a lot of quality improvement projects, you know how to choose the measures, you know how to do these things. What you may not know is how to submit it to get that credit. And so that may be the piece that you say, okay, that's what I really want to see. Now, even if you say, hey, I'm doing something on this totally different topic, it's worth looking at these modules because they'll step you through line by line on the form of, okay, here's what you put next. Here's how you do this. And there are the videos, there are the worksheets that will help guide through that. And so absolutely. And what the goal of this is to have any resource that somebody might need there, recognizing that most of us won't need all the resources, but it's there if you need it.
And certainly, physicians aren't limited to these topics. I think the board has made a lot of accommodations as far as a lot of performance improvement type of accommodations. Like if you're doing something great in your office and it's not really on the list, but if you complete the form and you fill out their requirements, then that will get you credit. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And in fact, the one I've recommended for a lot of people to do is that they have a self-directed pathway recommendation for COVID. And so I think all of us changed our practices, most of us fairly significantly, especially in the early days of COVID. And so the last quality improvement project that I submitted to the board was for COVID. And so I looked at doing virtual visits. And it was a simple form. In fact, we have a video on the OAFP website that can step you through that process. And you can still claim for the stuff you did back then with COVID if you wanted to. And so anything like that, you can submit. The other thing, other things that are out there and are options for people, if you've gotten medical home certification, you can submit that and get points for that. There's a lot of other quality projects, NCQA diabetes, you can get credit for that. And so there's lots of ways of doing it. What the board has moved towards is much more of a confirming what you've already done that meets the requirement rather than forcing you to go out and do something totally different. And we're just trying to support physicians as they do that and make it easier.
And for people who are newer to the process, who haven't done it before, what is the minimum time frame and the maximum kind of time frame for a PI project?
Absolutely. So with the PI projects, first of all, you need to do one every 3 years. You can do more than that. And so if you need to make up a bunch of CME, you can do it even if you don't need the points for the board. But you get 20 hours of CME and you get 20 ABFM points every 3 years. For the projects, you can do them as short as 7 days, although most things really shouldn't probably be that short. 3 months is a pretty good time frame, but you can do them up to a year. They need to be done within a year. What I always tell folks is really when we talk about quality improvement, we always talk about that doing it in cycles. So basically, instead of making a huge change and then waiting a year or two to see if it works, what you really should be doing is you should be coming back regularly and checking to see how it's working and then adjusting, tweaking it, and either improving it or deciding that, yep, that's a change you want long-term, or deciding, hey, this really isn't working the way we thought. And so usually it's good to do those in cycles that last a few months. Now, the important thing to recognize is that the data won't get where you want it to be. So one of the upcoming projects we're looking at is an HPV vaccination. And realistically, with HPV vaccination, you're not going to go from 60% to 80% in 3 months because you're not even going to have interactions with most of your patients in a 3-month period. But it is, have you put a process in place that is starting to show improvement? Now, another question people often ask about ABFM projects is what happens if it doesn't show improvement? Now, especially if you are doing 10 random charts, and if you're on paper, you're certainly going to do that. There aren't too many people on paper anymore, but if you don't have the support you need to get things out of your record system and you're doing a chart review and you check 10, there's a decent chance that your numbers are going to be worse after than they were before. Just because the truth of the matter is over 3 months, or certainly if you have a shorter time period than that, it's hard to make huge amounts of change. And that's okay. What you're getting credit for is the process. You're not getting credit for improving the care. You're getting credit for implementing that quality improvement process. Because what we know is if you're looking at systems and if you're working on that process, it will lead to better care. It may not lead to better numbers immediately, but it will lead to better care. And sometimes it can take months or years to see those numbers change, but you still get the credit and it still makes an impact on patients.
Now, is it possible to do like the same project year after year? Like, say I want to do an HPV immunization project this year, it doesn't really work out, and then I retool things and want to try it again next year. Is that something that is allowable?
You can certainly repeat them. I think for credit, I think that they want them separated out probably into different cycles.
Gotcha.
Although the truth of the matter is what the ABFM has become incredibly physician-centric and patient-centric. And so while I would encourage you to think about something different, um, and the rest of it is you only need to complete one per cycle. So certainly if you do one this cycle and then 2 years later on your next cycle and you want to repeat the same thing, there's certainly no problem with that at all. That very much this is about learning the process and working on. The other thing that I find personally is, having done various projects on different topics, what ends up happening is you might do HPV this year, and then you're going to make some tweaks on it and keep going on it, but you really don't end up putting that much time into it because you have those systems in place. And it may be that, okay, now we're going to add, okay, what we really need to do is have a resource for patients, a better education resource. So you put that together and you may rerun those numbers. And if you have the capacity to do it in your record system, it's great to put these things in a dashboard so you see them on a regular basis and keep track of those numbers, and then do it. The best thing, if you're going to do the same thing again, is to choose a different quality measure. So you may choose on the same topic, but choose a slightly different measure, and that's much more likely to be okay. But generally, yeah, you'll end up deciding there's something else you want to work on and apply this, because it really is, having been through this process various times and with different practices, to watch people get excited about it and actually see the impact they're making on patients. It makes you want to do this in other areas.
Right, and I think you've talked about this before. Is it's not just the physician; it's kind of the whole team in that office or in that process, to have people really kind of work together to work to their strengths, to see how they really complement each other. Not only for this quality measure, but they probably end up on learning other efficiencies in their workflow.
Absolutely, and yeah, and in the past, what we've done is we've had kind of team training sessions where we bring in physicians and teams, and really work through the process and figure that out. And like I mentioned, HPV is one of our upcoming EasyPI things, and that one we do actually have. We're going to be doing some team trainings with. And so, if this is a process you go, hey, this sounds scary, I want even more support, that I'd encourage you to watch for that, because information is going to be coming out over the next few months on that. And we'll be looking for practices and teams that want to be involved in that process. And that will be even more assistance than just this. But this is a great resource if you want just that extra little nudge of how to get it done right. Make sure you get that credit for what you're doing.
And you mentioned a little bit about the peer review process. Can you expand a little bit about that? I think you just touched on it before, I think.
Absolutely. So with EasyPI, all of our EasyPI products are peer reviewed. And what we do is basically it's developed by physicians and staff. And then once it's been developed, and also many of these have sponsors who help fund the development of these products. And then once everybody's kind of looked at it and everybody's happy with what we have, we send it off to a group of physicians. So usually it's about 3 or 4 different physicians. And what they do is they look through it. They look at the resources. They're making sure that the resources are appropriate. They make sure that it's up-to-date information. They make sure that we're not missing information. We make sure it's not biased information, because that's very, very important to us. Even though this isn't a CME bearing, we're not certifying this for CME. We believe this is medical education, so it's very important to have it unbiased, have a quality, and then make sure that we're not missing some good resources, because sometimes having just 1 or 2 people working on it, there's other resources out there we just may not be aware of, even with a thorough literature search. And so that lets us kind of get the best resources all in one place. And then once they peer reviewed it and made sure that it meets all those criteria, then we move forward and actually publish it and have it ready to go. And then the rest of that peer review process is anytime that we say, hey, there's a new guideline, here's what we want to add, here's what we want to change about this, we put it back out to those peer reviewers and just make sure that we're staying pertinent, staying on topic, and make sure that we really do have the best evidence. Because our goal is when you're the physician using this, is so that you don't have to spend a whole lot of time sorting through junk.
Great. Let me see here. So before we close up here, Ryan, I mean, I think you've teased a little bit about what's a little bit in the future as far as HPV and maybe some other things. Yeah. Any other closing thoughts for our audience, especially when it comes to this EasyPI product and performance improvement in general?
So performance improvement in general, I'd say, so important. It is a great way to build team. That you have a lot of other people working in your office who aren't physicians, and you have, as a physician, you have so much on your plate. And if you can find ways to, first of all, give the rest of that team ownership in your practice and in your patient's care, it will make your life a lot easier. It'll also improve the care your patients get, because um, we all know that there are gaps in the care that our patients receive, and none of us have time to fill those gaps. If we did, we would have done it already. And so pulling those other people in will give them ownership in your practice. That helps with staff retention. That helps with staff satisfaction. So important there. Um, and so that's a great reason to do practice improvement. Also, it improves the care of your patients. So important there. And then finally, we have to do it to get that credit. So for all those reasons, performance improvement is important. It's been so nice to have the ABFM working to make this process simpler for physicians. But even so, who has the time to read through all this stuff and sort all this stuff out? That the first couple projects I did through this kind of thing, it took an hour sitting down and just reading through things to figure it out, an hour or two. And then I'm still going, okay, I hope this works, because I don't know. Well, now, having been through that process and helping guide you through that process, I can now do one of these things in about 10 minutes. Now, that's not the data collection, but as far as actually filling out the paperwork, it takes 10 minutes. And 10 minutes for 20 hours of CME is a pretty good deal. And like I said, everybody's already doing this in your practice, and the rest of it is even if you say, hey, I've already met that requirement, but boy, this sounds interesting, do it. You still need the CME. It's a great way to get that CME. And the other beautiful thing about getting your CME through something like this is, once you've paid for your board, you can get as many CME credits for that as you want. Everything else you're paying by the hour. With this, that you can just kind of keep using it. So it's a great opportunity. So even if you say, oh yeah, I just did one of those last year, but that topic looks interesting, go ahead and do another one. You can use it for the CME.
Great. And I think you said before we came on the air that a few months from now there's going to be a lot more EasyPI topics out there, so people definitely should stay tuned.
Yeah, so we're looking at social determinants of health and doing an EasyPI around that. We've got a variety of clinical topics. We're looking at potentially doing obesity. We're looking at HPV. We have a variety of other disease states that we're in talks about doing. So if you like it, if you do one and say, hey, this is what I enjoyed, but you just say, hey, here's a topic that really seems to be missing, let us know, because we are exploring. Certainly, the next asthma will be coming out here very soon, and then the first of the year is when we're looking for the next set. And so we'll look for probably a couple more to come out early next year. But as we start kind of are setting our schedule of what all we're doing, we certainly invite suggestions.
Cool. Well, great. Well, Dr. Ryan Kauffman, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for explaining the easiness of the EasyPI. And you can see on the bottom there, you can get more information at ohioafp.org/EasyPI, and also keep OAFP in mind for your KSA needs as well. So that ends our program tonight. Thank you for being here. And you can always get the archives of bite-sized learning at ohioafp.org. So good night, everybody. Bye.